On Thanksgiving Day, I stood quietly in my sister Olivia's kitchen, a plate of turkey and stuffing in my hands, watching my family gather around her polished, picture-perfect dining table. The table was set with imported lace, Wedgwood china, and crystal glasses that gleamed under the chandelier. But there was no place setting for me. "The dining room is for successful people," Olivia said with a smirk, adjusting her Cartier bracelet. "You can eat in the kitchen. That's more your level." I glanced at the lonely plate resting on the cold marble of the kitchen island. Through the doorway, I saw my parents already seated, deliberately avoiding eye contact, pretending not to notice my quiet exile. At the head of the table sat Olivia's husband, Bradley, smug as ever, pouring expensive wine, for everyone but me. If only they knew. If only they understood who I really was. But maybe it's better to start from the beginning. 5 years ago, I was working as a commercial real estate analyst at a mid-sized firm. A decent job, but I saw something others didn't. Downtown was on the verge of a transformation. Tech companies were flooding in, driving up demand for modern office space. But the buildings? Outdated and neglected. So I made a bold move. I cashed out my savings, 401k, and even my emergency fund to launch Vista Properties LLC. My family was horrified. "Another one of Sophie's impractical whims," they said. "When will you grow up and get a real job?" My mother sighed at dinner, glancing at Olivia, the golden child, recently promoted to senior accountant at Marshall & Reed. They had no idea I'd already lined up investors and identified my first property, the Kingsley Building, an old Art Deco gem with good bones in the heart of downtown. I bought it for $12 million, using investor funds and a cleverly structured loan. To my family, I was just showing apartments to broke college students. I let them believe it. The renovation took 8 months. I modernized the infrastructure but preserved the historic charm. Before we even finished, tech firms were calling. Then came the irony. Marshall & Reed, Olivia's firm, was searching for a new office. They signed a 10-year lease for 3 floors, unaware that the mysterious company behind the deal was run by the sister Olivia loved to dismiss. At dinner, Olivia beamed as she bragged about her firm's new prestigious address. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom to laugh. Over the next 4 years, I expanded aggressively, acquiring and renovating 6 more prime properties. My net worth passed $100 million last year. Still, I kept driving my old Honda, dressing off the rack, and living modestly, curious how long my family's condescension would last. Which brings us back to Thanksgiving. I sat alone at the kitchen island, chewing my turkey while my family discussed their so-called successes. Bradley was bragging about his corner office in my building. Olivia sang the praises of her firm's new headquarters, also mine. My phone buzzed. A text from my property manager. "Inspection complete on Marshall & Reed's floors. Multiple code violations found. Proceed with lease termination warning." I smiled. "Hold until Monday," I replied. "Let them enjoy their Thanksgiving." "Sophie," my mother called sweetly, "since you're in the kitchen anyway, could you bring us more wine?" I rose without a word. Behind me, Olivia stage whispered to Bradley, "At least she's good for something. Someone's got to do the serving." I pulled a bottle from the fridge and walked over to the dining room. "Here's your wine," I said pleasantly. "By the way, how do you like the new elevators in your building? I heard they were just upgraded." "Oh, they're fabulous," Olivia gushed. "Much nicer than whatever's in your little apartment complex." I nearly laughed out loud. I'd personally chosen those elevators, right down to the marble floors and brass fixtures. They cost more than Olivia's annual salary. "More turkey?" my mother asked Bradley, ignoring me again. Then Bradley puffed up. "Did you hear? Vista Properties just acquired the Preston Tower. Now that's a real estate company. Not like some people's little rental gigs." I nearly choked. I'd closed that deal yesterday. $50 million for one of the most iconic buildings in the city. The news wouldn't go public until next week. "How'd you hear about that?" I asked, playing dumb. "I have connections," Bradley said smugly. "High-level business intel. You wouldn't understand." I nodded, checking my phone again. Another message. "Preston Tower closure complete. Congratulations on the acquisition, Miss Walker." "Sophie," Olivia interrupted, "can you clean up in here? We'd like to enjoy our meal." I returned to the kitchen, their obedient servant, while outside, hidden around the corner, my Bentley and driver waited. 1 week. That's how long until the lease termination notices would land on Olivia's and Bradley's desks. Formal letters, on premium stock, bearing my signature. The same name they'd never bothered to look for on the building they bragged about. Sometimes, success isn't about proving people wrong right away. Sometimes, it's about letting them dig their own holes and showing them, at just the right moment, who really holds the keys. I sat in my real office, the entire top floor of the Kingsley building. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sweeping view of the city I now largely owned. On my desk were 2 crisp stacks of documents, lease termination notices for Marshall and Reed, and another for Bradley's law firm. The intercom buzzed. "Ms. Walker, the courier is ready." "Send them out," I said, checking my watch. 9:15 a.m., just about when Olivia would be sipping her morning coffee. I pulled up the building's security feed. Camera 12 showed Olivia in her office, smugly flipping through documents. Camera 14 revealed Bradley 3 floors below, likely billing for hours he hadn't worked. At exactly 9:30, the courier arrived. I watched in silence as identical envelopes were delivered. Olivia opened hers first. Her casual expression twisted into confusion, then panic. A moment later, Bradley was on his feet, tearing into his. My phone rang almost instantly. I let it go to voicemail, watching Olivia pace her office like a caged animal. Moments later, she did what I expected, called our parents. I picked up and switched my phone to speaker. "Sophie," my mother gasped. "Thank goodness. Something terrible has happened. Olivia and Bradley just got eviction notices. Can you help?" "My help?" I asked mildly. "What could I possibly do? You're in real estate. Surely you know someone." I stared at Olivia's frantic face on the screen. "Last week, I wasn't even successful enough to eat dinner with you. Now I'm useful." Silence. "Tell them to come to the top floor of their building at noon," I said finally. "The owner of Vista Properties will see them." "The top floor," my mother repeated. "That's the executive suite. They've never been invited up there." "Exactly." I smiled. "Don't be late." I spent the next 2 hours watching the chaos unfold. Olivia made dozens of calls. Bradley paced like a trapped animal. They were beginning to realize that no other premium building downtown had space for their firms. What they didn't know was that I owned those buildings, too. At 11:55, my assistant buzzed. "They've arrived." I watched them gather in the lobby. Olivia, Bradley, my parents, visibly nervous. They stepped into the private elevator. At the top, my assistant greeted them. "Ms. Walker will see you now." "Walker?" My mother frowned. "But we're here to meet the owner of Vista." The doors to my office opened. I stood behind my desk, serene. "Sophie!" Olivia's voice cracked. "What are you doing here?" "Welcome to my office," I said calmly. "Please sit. We have things to discuss." "Your office?" Bradley sputtered. "This belongs to the owner." "Yes," I said. "I'm the owner. Vista Properties is mine. Has been for 5 years." Dead silence. My mother collapsed into a chair. My father's face went blank. "That's impossible," Olivia whispered. "You're a rental agent." I pressed a button on my desk. The back wall lit up with a digital display. 8 buildings, including the Kingsley and the newly acquired Preston Tower. Total value, over $400 million. "While you were mocking my career," I said, "I was building an empire. While you were bragging about your prestigious address, you were renting from me. And while I ate Thanksgiving alone in the kitchen, I was signing the deal for Preston Tower." Bradley's jaw dropped. "That was you?" "But Vista Properties is me," I repeated. I picked up the termination notices. Both firms have violated multiple building codes. Grounds for lease termination. "You can't do this," Olivia whispered. "We're family." I laughed. "Was I family when you made me eat by the sink? When you called me a failure? Treated me like a servant?" My mother stepped forward. "Sophie, we didn't know. That's the point. You never cared enough to find out." I walked to the window and let the silence hang. "I'm not terminating your leases," I said finally. They exhaled. "But I'm tripling your rent, effective immediately. And you'll be moving to interior floors. The corner offices are for tenants who treat others with respect." "Triple?" Bradley sputtered. We can't afford that. Then I suggest you look for new space. Oh wait, I smiled. I own all the prime office buildings downtown. Olivia burst into tears. Please, Sophie. We'll lose everything. Like I lost your kindness, your respect, your decency. I sat behind my desk again. You have until the end of the day to decide. But know this. Next Thanksgiving, I won't be eating in the kitchen. I'll be hosting. In my penthouse. As they left, I watched them slink back to their offices, shoulders low, egos deflated. My phone buzzed. Text from property manager. New tenant interested in the corner suites. Should I schedule a showing? Me? Yes. Tell them they're available immediately. Sometimes, success isn't about proving people wrong. Sometimes, it's about letting them discover just how wrong they were. Preferably from an office they never realized you owned.